I think it's early. I don't think they're going to handle it particularly well if they have a 4-win season again next year. And I think that's in play. I do.
I can tell you I've spoken to some younger offensive coaches that are in the league now, just talking about the offensive coordinator job before they hired Van Pelt. And one of the reasons this was viewed as a not desirable job went beyond the roster. It went to expectations here locally as well. Ownership and fans. Even though it's been bad the last few years here, and if you're rational, you're probably anticipating a 2 to 3 year rebuild, at least. You're also programmed over the course of the last 20-plus years to watch good football.
Yeah.
And so it's going to make it hard for who's ever in these jobs, Mayo, Covington, Van Pelt, McAdoo, Kraft, to watch more bad football. And so it's a huge factor.
Especially ownership, too, if you're going to have a bigger hand into what's being done or how you're going to fix it. I'm going to be around more. I'm going to be more visible. And how are fans going to take that? You see how they've kind of taken it as, well, they got their hands in everything. Yeah, they really don't from a football sense. And I think they trust Elliott Wolf. They trust Gerard. You got to let those guys be themselves at some point, too. You can't hold their hand all day. And they've had success letting football people handle the football end of it. But what's the level going to be if they become impatient? You know, they don't get off to a good start. If you're 4 games under 500, that makes people uneasy. You hear it from the fans. You hear it from your clients. You hear it from your sponsors. People want a winner. You're conditioned to win. Even though we haven't had success the last 3 years, we still feel we're different than the rest of the league. And at some point, that's going to wear off, and that's where it's going to be interesting to see how everything goes.
You know what will really ratchet up the impatience? Is if they screw up the quarterback decision.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's to take a guy and he fails, or whether it's to pass and that guy succeeds, that will really cause fans and maybe even ownership to look at it and say, what the hell are we doing here?
Well, that's how we
can't
watch.
get
And the
that
staff
position
I'm
right.
sorry, but the staff is underwhelming. I like Gerard Mayo, but it feels like they didn't do everything that they needed to do a full search because they didn't conduct one, right?
Yeah.
And that impacts how I feel about the situation. And the other hires they've made are not swinging big, you know? It's sort of, the entire thing is kind of underwhelming. And I hope they're not setting themselves up, and this is why the draft picks are so important, as you state. I hope they're not setting themselves up to, in 3 years, be looking at this saying, oh, we've got to blow everybody out now and start again.
It feels like a collegiate program that had a ton of success, and then the head guy ends up getting a big gig and leaves and takes his staff with him. And it's still the big school, the big team, but it's a new, younger staff that we have no clue how anybody's going to react. It's sort of, you got to sit and wait till about mid-year until they get the ball rolling. I remember when, like, Urban Meyer went to Ohio State. Like Ryan Day follows these guys, or Jeff Hafley at BC, and now Billy O goes there. It's like a bigger name to me. And you remember when Bob Stoops was at Oklahoma, and then he left and retired, and then Lincoln Riley goes to USC, or you see what's happened now. If you're an Alabama fan, how do you feel about getting the Washington guy? You don't know. He succeeded at Washington, but we're SEC. We're Alabama. We're
I don't know.
different.
That feels like a good hire.
I know that, but
You
I'm
should
saying
be probably happy with that.
When you're used to
How do you feel about
Saban.
Jed Fish if you're a Washington fan?
Yeah.
Underwhelmed.
I don't know.
Yeah, but like
Underwhelmed.
again, like we're similar to Alabama. Like you're so used to Saban for how many decades now and all the winning, and we're in the Final Four every year. Nothing else is acceptable. And now Saban's gone, so it's going to be watch this guy and see how he reacts here.
Well,
good coach, but
What's their
Nick
ceiling?
Saban.
What's their ceiling on wins for next year?
Who? New England?
The Patriots.
Boy. Listen, it depends on if you get the right quarterback in. If you somehow hit a home run and you end up with this year's C.J. Stroud,
Totally.
the ceiling could be, it's still not going to be overwhelming, but to
7,
me
right?
it's still 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I was going
Right.
to say 8 would be their ceiling. That's the number I'd
Maybe
put
you
on
get
it.
a receiver and the quarterback, and that might be good enough for 8 wins with a good defense. If you miss, you're back to where you were a year ago. It could look pretty similar. And again, this gets back to, and I think this is how Bill Belichick sort of looms over this team still, is the state of the roster and the shape it was left in. It allows you to, or it forces you to, find other options with the coaching staff. I think they got 1 out of their top choices at all the coordinator spots. I think they went 1 for 3. They got DeMarcus Covington, which was going to be an easy one. He was here anyway.
Yeah.
I think they wanted Nick Caley, and I think they wanted Marquise Williams, who is the Falcons special teams coordinator now. They went 1 for 3, and I think part of that, Beatles, because of the roster. Guys didn't want these jobs.